Favorite hike within Auburn SRA originates southeast of the park at Rattlesnake Bar in Newcastle and follows the Pioneer Express Trail to the base of Cardiac Hill above Oregon Bar, continuing up to Maydew Drive and the Cardiac Hill Gate. The hike is an easy moderate with the exception of the last mile, which is strenuous. Another trail of note is a recently completed Windy Point to Shirttail Creek connector. This approximately 6-mile trail allows one to hike from Indian Creek Trail at Yankee Gyms all the way up to Windy Point on Iowa Hill Road. This is an advanced strenuous hike that affords a good challenge and even greater views. When you're in the No Hands Bridge area, be sure to head up Western States and proceed down to the river instead of up the hairpin above No Hands. This trail follows the ridgeline several hundred feet above the river and is intended to provide a connector to Pardner's Trail and Knickerbocker Falls if the trail angels are kind. Those seeking the ultimate in elevation changes would do well to tackle Pollard's Fuel Break, Gate 129 off Forest Hill Road down to the Middle Fork, as I'm told there is nothing steeper in Auburn SRA. Our next trail originates at Roby's Point, a very popular entranceway for the park, especially for horses.
You know, it's hard to imagine anything finer than to be here on an early autumn afternoon. Look at the crowds here at the confluence of the North and Middle Forks of the American River. It's incredible. You know, when you think about the Auburn State Recreation Area, many people have only experienced the confluence. They haven't gone beyond here to go anywhere else. On the other hand, this is probably the ideal place for anybody who is not familiar with the wild side of Auburn to begin. You have the North Fork of the American River coming in and meeting the Middle Fork of the American River, and then going down on to Folsom Lake and back into Sacramento and the Sacramento River. This is not only a historic area because of the history of the indigenous people who were here before the miners came to settle it, but it's also got a lot of current history. In terms of structures that you see in the distance, that's the current bridge where 4 bridges have existed over time. This confluence area had a dozen different bridges over the years from the 1880s on till currently. There are only 4 remaining, but from this very area or from that bridge itself you can see all of them. The High Forest Hill Bridge, the curved bridge behind us, steel curved bridge, the current Forest Hill Bridge, and then the legendary No Hands Bridge just slightly downstream. One of the reasons I like to direct people to come to this area is because you can start literally from a quarter of a mile of this location and hike on over a dozen different trails. They're literally like spokes of a wheel. You can go from here back up the Auburn Stagecoach Trail. You can go up to Clark's Hole on the North Fork. You can hike from here, Training Hill Trail, they call it, to the Painted Rocks area, or you can continue literally another dozen miles further up the Middle Fork of the American River. There's no question about the fact that this is the hub of the Auburn State Recreation Area, with presumably close to 1 million visitors a year. I don't know where they all are today on this lovely autumn afternoon, but they're missing the best of it. We're at the site of the Mountain Quarries Railroad Bridge, which is perhaps one of the best known features of this entire area, designated as a National Register of Historic Places monument in 2004. This is a bridge that was completed in 1912 and was used by the Mountain Quarries Railroad to bring limestone from the quarry upstream on the quarry trail up to Auburn. The bridge itself is well known and legendary for being near the end point of both the Western States Trail Run and the Tevis Cup horse race. Speaking of horses, this bridge, in addition to being officially called the Mountain Quarries Railroad Bridge, is commonly referred to as No Hands Bridge. That designation presumably came from the fact that back before there was a guardrail on the bridge, as there is today, horsemen and women would ride across the bridge, and a lady by the name of Ina Robinson was prone to ride across the bridge with her hands in the air saying, "Look, no hands," hence its current designation. For those who might be interested in more detailed information about the Confluence area, or for that matter, the trails throughout the Auburn State Recreation Area, I've got to recommend a book entitled Canyon Hikes, put out by the Canyon Keepers in 2005 and revised in 2007 with a description, arguably a very easy to follow description of 24 different trails. This book was actually created after some of us had read what is clearly still the definitive story about the American River, its history, its trails, excellent description of all the river rafting trips, the cultural history, the Indian history, etc. This is a book that was published originally and is about to be revised, I'm told, by PARC, Protect American River Canyons, the fine volunteer organization that is probably really responsible for my standing here now rather than being 300 or 400 feet underneath water, which I would be had there been a dam created, the American River, here in Auburn. Thank you.
I attest to the quality of the information and history painstakingly documented and cataloged in both these publications. There are two other trail guides I often carry, the first of which is Tom Peterson's Georgetown Trails. Tom likes to draw maps, and he's darn fine at it to boot. His guide details trails, history, and multi-use information, preparing the hiker for their next adventure. If you haven't been to Old Georgetown and its trails, pick up this book and plan a visit. Heck, you can even get a room above the historic bar in Georgetown. The other guide is Ron Gould's North Fork Trails. Ron's book covers some of the historic and, dare I say, steep hikes in the canyons. Ron loves history and has some fine maps and trail descriptions to enlighten. This book is great for hikers looking for a guide to Green Valley, Euchre Bar, and the Upper Canyons, and of course, the North Fork of the American River.
One of the finer amenities here at the Auburn State Recreation Area. Always a pleasant relief.
I thought that was your office at ARD, Jim.
Thanks.
We're loaded in decent shape, but we don't have any revenue coming in, so it's our last area to be. We're going to have fees, major area.
That's next year?
It's going to start at the beginning of next year, so we'll see how it goes.
That'll be a big part of solving the problem.
It will. Fees traditionally have been, and entrance stations, which we had very few of here, solve a lot of our problems. We started putting entrance stations, for instance, at Upper Lake Clementine before we even had fees. But if we had somebody up there talking to people about dog regulations, alcohol, glass, we eliminated a large amount of our problems before it even got down to the beach and they really got going. So fees and entrance stations, traditionally in parks, and we're not a traditional park here, but help resolve problems before they start. And we're going to have more and more, we have had more and more, I guess, over the last 2 decades of fees, and it does help.
So I guess if Prop 21 did happen to get passed, they would really have to spend money on rangers. Because
if Prop 21 passes, our department anticipates, one, increased use because it would be free to everybody in the state. So if you wanted to go use a restroom or anything, you'll be able to drive right into a state park and use that facility. So we're going to get a lot more use. We did have a fee reduction and almost elimination back under Gray Davis when times were good, and they did up our staffing by about 20% just to deal with the increased use. Some of our areas we probably would still run an entrance station because having a $10 an hour seasonal person greet someone, remind them of the rules, and kind of being our eyes and ears pays off for us even if they're not collecting fees. So
I'm 50.